Hello, Jacksonites, and welcome to take 2 of our ranking of all the episodes of Tremors, this series. And I'm actually more prepared because not only do I have the shades, I have the disc, and I have some good old burp fuel. And of course, joining me today is fellow film reviewer and Trevor's aficionado, Trevor Thomson. Make yourself known.
Howdy, everybody. I was told that I should probably be called Tremor Thomson as of late. So.
Oh, and for anyone who's wondering, it's the Mountain Dew Major Melon, which actually isn't bad.
Sounds like it would be pretty tart.
It's not, actually. It's very smooth. So, yes, today... Yeah, it's pretty good. Today we will be ranking all 13 episodes of the nearly forgotten Tremors this series. In my opinion, in my own headcanon, this is the official Tremors 4. I'm pretty sure same for Trev as well. And in our opinion, it's just one of the most underrated installments of the entire Tremors franchise. There's a lot of stuff that went into this show that, in our opinions, makes it one of the either second or third most underrated installment of the whole series. So, because of us ranking the whole series, we just got in the mood to talk about this a little bit more. And also kind of a special announcement coming at the end of this video. A little bit of a restructuring for my schedule, but you know me, I always change my mind. I know it's kind of annoying sometimes, but you know, I want to do the stuff that I want to do. But oh well. So since Trev, huh?
What you're in the mood for?
Yep. Since Trev and I have the exact same episodes for our 12 and 13 spots, we're going to talk about them together. So to reiterate, it's going to be from our least favorite episode all the way down to our favorite episode. And this is both of our opinions, so don't take it like a Star Wars fan. So for both of us, coming in at number 13 is The Key.
Yes, sir. Bottom of the barrel.
It sucks. It sucks so bad.
Pretty much the only good thing is the practical El Blanco.
Yes. The practical effects are good, and the way that bitch, bye-bye, Frankie, chick dies is very enjoyable and is very cathartic to watch. But other than that, this episode is just garbage. It's very dull, slow, boring, uninteresting. It's just not, and also, it's not an enjoyable episode, and it's severely lacking Bert.
Well, that was a problem with this one and number 12.
We'll talk about that when we get there, but yeah, this episode sucks. I really don't like The Key. It doesn't work as a finale to the series. It just feels like a below average episode. The series starts strong, but unfortunately in its last couple episodes, it just ran out of steam. So maybe that was another thing that led to its cancellation. But yeah, The Key just sucks. Anything to add, Trev?
Vivica Fox, who played Will Smith's wife in Independence Day, she's nice to look at, but again, her character is a complete bitch. So, yeah.
I know she's the villain of the episode, so inherently she's supposed to be unlikable, but she's annoyingly unlikable. Like, just listening to her talk is annoying as fuck. So,
well, that's the problem, is that not only are they unlikable and really unlikable, there isn't the person who anchors the series really isn't there, so even the characters that we usually like, they're kind of struggling in the dark to kind of keep us entertained.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Practical El Blanco is pretty much the saving grace of this, and even he's not really worth wasting time on the episode. So
nope. Yeah, The Key sucks. And both of our number 12s is The Sounds of Silence. This one
Yes.
suffers from a lot of the same problems as the previous one. The lack of Bert really kills it. The lack of really a focus point in the episode really hurts it. The Mixmaster bugs feel really stale and very non-threatening and very underwhelming. Larry is annoying as fuck and fucking useless.
Pretty much.
It's just a very dull, try too hard type episode. It's not very enjoyable. It's just so flat and bland.
This is where, because the one we just talked about, the key cemented the fact that it wasn't going to survive. But this was the first real red flag that the show was in trouble, I feel. And even though I like a lot of the Big Bug movie references that Larry makes, he was a good part of the episode he debuted in. But this is where he starts to be not only useless, but, as Nick said, irritating. So, yeah, this was signs that the ship was starting to go down.
Very much so agree. Anything else to add?
No, that's it. Unless you're just really curious and you're a first-time viewer and you want to make up your own mind, I don't recommend these.
Alrighty, so since Trev is my guest, he can go first on the ones that we differ on. Your number 11.
My number 11 is Hit and Run, which establishes the storyline that's finished in the key. This introduces the biggest gangsters, which I feel was trying to maybe pull a Goodfellas and get that kind of audience to watch the show, I guess, maybe. But the reason why this episode is higher up than the key is because there is a good bit of development for Bert and Tyler. They're dynamic. The fact that Bert is willing to look out for everybody in perfection, including Tyler and his Graboid tour business, he's trying to make sure that El Blanco isn't a threat to the tourists. So he's devising ways to make sure that doesn't happen, where he's a threat. But that aside, Nick, you maybe you'll get into it whenever you bring up where this episode is on your ranking, but you have a good alternate pitch for what this episode probably should have been.
Yeah, I'll save that for when I talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah, so final word on this one. It's better than the key, but not by much because it's leading into that. So that's why it's number 11 on my list.
My number 11 is Water Hazard. This one, for me, was the first red flag of the show really starting to run out of steam. Really, it's the last 3 episodes that... So I do think that there are 5 bad episodes, but I think bad is a little too harsh of a word. The last 3 episodes, 11, 12, and 13, I think are the worst. The other 2 episodes that I say are bad, quote unquote, are just really mixed. One is literally half good and half bad, and the other one isn't bad per se. It's just kind of bland. But Water Hazard was the very first one where I feel the show was starting to really run out of steam. Not a very interesting monster. Well, in concept, it's interesting, but the way that it's executed is kind of infuriating due to the fact that it's a Mixmaster mutated giant shrimp. Kind of sounds cool, but we barely see the thing. And whenever it is on screen, they do the close-up shaky cam bits and pieces here and there type editing, and it's really almost nauseating. It's like Resident Evil, the final chapter.
It's bullshit.
Yes, bullshit. And the human drama is not very... Well, it's not very interesting, but also at the same time it is, because they established that Bert and the Sheriff of Bixby are old friends, and you kind of want to get more info out of that, but they just kind of gloss over it. Like they say, oh, yep, we're old friends. And then they just move on. Also, Melvin is at his very much most annoying in this episode. I know that That's another thing that was kind of a shame about this. They kind of set Melvin up to be an antagonist in the first episode of the series, as Trev stated yesterday, but they don't really do anything else with him until episode 11. So what the fuck? Maybe they had plans to do more with him if they finished the show, but they didn't. So this just kind of feels like a little too late. Overall, Water Hazard, it has some potential, but it's the beginning of the end as far as I'm concerned with the show.
I got you. I'm going to be the good cop for that one here in a minute.
Next.
All right, so my number 10 is Feeding Frenzy. This is a good episode, but it's kind of like how Nick feels about the original Tremors movie. It's basically the blueprint or the prototype for what the show is going to be. So it obviously is going to be surpassed later on down the line. A pretty good quote to describe Melvin with a little turd. Always expect plausible deniability. And that is indeed true.
Punk ass.
Definitely plays a role in Water Hazard, which I'll kind of try and get into a little bit. But yeah, this is a good episode. I think it establishes the characters and everything pretty well. But yeah, it just ends up being surpassed. And to be honest, it might actually, this on my rankings, it might flip with my number 9, which I'll reveal here in a minute. But yeah, good, but there's better to come.
Mm-hmm. So my number 10 is Hit and Run. This is the one that I think is half good and half bad. The first half of the episode, I think, is the bad part. Now, my alternate pitch, because I don't think the gangster aspect mixes well with Tremors. It sticks out like a sore thumb. It feels like a diet version of either The Godfather, Goodfellas, or The Irishman. Like any kind of Francis Ford Coppola gangster type stuff just does not mix well with Tremors. What I think would have been a much better concept is if these guys were big game hunters and they wanted to break the law and come down to Perfection Valley and try to scope out El Blanco and then finally kill him. The guy who gets eaten has the key to a whole bunch of hidden animal stuff because they're big game hunters, and they also have a lot of ties to the distribution of illegal animal parts on the black market, which next to guns, drugs, and sex on the black market, the illegal selling of endangered animal parts, which is something that they could have used to tie into Tremors 5, is such a big thing nowadays. It's literally right behind. I'd say it's probably tied with guns, and it's right behind drugs.
And more to that effect, tying into Tremors 5, because Tremors 5 got into the black market thing with Van Wyck, or Van Dyck, as
Van
Travis
Dyck, let's just call him that.
Yeah, Van Dyck, he wanted an AB egg for the black market. I was hoping that there would be a more explicit tie to that in Shrieker Island, because that would have explained how Bill got those eggs. And that would have just made it even more of a canon number 6 for me. But anyway.
So, yeah, the first half does not mix well at all. Like, the gangster stuff does not work in the universe of Tremors. So I think they're just
unlikable.
Huh?
They're just unlikable.
Well, not even that. Like, of course, like I said, they're supposed to be the villains. So, of course, they're unlikable. But it's just the fact that they're gangsters. Like, where is this coming from? Like, this does not mix well with Tremors at all. You should have kept. I really do think they had a missed opportunity of making them big game hunters. Because, and the reason I say that is because that's what Michael Rooker acts like in the second half of the episode. He doesn't act like a gangster. He acts like a big game hunter. Like, all he wants to do is just capture El Blanco and kill him. And I think that it would have been an interesting dichotomy for Bert, especially to go through, because he's seen El Blanco as nothing but a monster that needs to be destroyed and monitored. But now that somebody's coming around and is threatening El Blanco, and i.e. threatening Bert's livelihood and also Bert himself, now he kind of has to flip himself around and do a character 180 and protect the thing that he hates the most. So I think that would have been a really cool concept. And that's why I think the second half of this episode is enjoyable, because it's just Bert and the residents of Perfection teaming up and trying to solve a big problem and drive out outsiders from their valley. It's entertaining stuff. It's just the first half is so difficult to get through. But if you can somehow tough through it, the second half of it is enjoyable. Moving on.
And dare I say, it's probably a little bit moving seeing the residents of Perfection going out of their way to try and protect El Blanco, who represents something that's been a threat to Perfection since the original movie.
Excuse me.
So my number 9 is Water Hazard. Yeah, I'm going to be the good cop on this one. I agree with Nick. I feel that they should have done more with actual shrimp, which is really interesting because they say the Mixmaster triggered DNA in regular shrimp and made them revert back to their ancestral species, which was some kind of, I believe it was from the Jurassic period, based on the name. But this actually goes back to an old concept for an older version of the show, and it would have been a creature that lived around the same time as the graboids. But that was back before they even did Tremors 2. That was whenever Tremors the series was going to follow Val and Earl. And Nick, I think I need to link you the Stampede Entertainment website so you can read through the forum they got there. There's a lot of really neat information. But yeah, I'll do that on the side. But yeah, so here's why Water Hazard is higher up for me. Is that if you reorder the episodes, I feel like this is a good second to last penultimate episode. It's the final conflict for the Mixmaster situation because they're trying to keep it from leaving the valley. Because Melvin is caught stealing well water from Perfection.
Again, I really question, is that illegal?
I think it definitely is. And it's not like he cares because he tries to get around, by doing whatever that suits his fancy. But, yeah, I feel like this is a good final note to end Mixmaster on if you're going to end it there.
Why not? Why can't people just jam this up Melvin's ass? Scramble out the little turds.
Yes, the little turd. But yeah, also Nick mentioned something about the Bixby, the sheriff in Bixby. I always like the fact that Bixby is kind of that background element that we never really delve into, but kind of piques your curiosity. Also, I think what saves this episode and the fact that it's kind of a little disappointing on the monster front is the fact that I feel the characters are engaging. It's, again, another situation where we realize Bert is trying as much as possible to watch out for everybody in Perfection. He's not necessarily succeeding, but he's trying. And this is also the last episode he appeared in, officially. And we probably could have used more of him, but it's still a nice final appearance for him.
Oh, and I also like that they established that they have like these monthly potlucks where, they all just come together and have this big dinner. I really wish that they could have added more to that. Like, again, they could have showed more to Bert that, yeah, he is a loner and he does prefer his isolation, but who doesn't like a good barbecue? Just like hanging out with friends and shooting the shit and enjoying life. Like, who the hell doesn't like that? So I wish they could have shown us more of that kind of stuff.
Well, see, and it's that just that little hint of that kind of dynamic that elevates the episode for me personally. But yeah, so it's my number 9. I think it's the character stuff and the fact that I can repurpose this episode is like the second to last. That's why it's higher up for me.
Fair enough. Let's see. My number 9 is Ghost Dance. This is the one that I think is just the most standard Like, you have some good science stuff. You have some good build-up. You have a good appearance of Christopher Lloyd. Do you have anything positive to add to this equation? Love that quote. And overall, it's not necessarily a bad episode. It's just the one that is the most standard. Nothing here screams amazing, and nothing here screams bad. It's just so middle of the road. With the exception of the Mixmaster bacteria cloud. I know in concept that this thing is kind of threatening, and it would be a big problem if it ever, got to a big populated area. It would be like the Ultra Q monster Balloonga. It would just constantly absorb moisture and water all around it till it literally became the size of a continent. But I just don't find this thing to be threatening at all. They mentioned that because it's a silicone-based life form, that the only way that you could kill it is with extreme heat. So you literally could just kill it with a flamethrower, or at least keep it at bay. It would be almost like Hedora, just dry it out. Yeah, I don't find this thing threatening at all. I think it's also the CG they used on it, it looks cartoony, but because it's supposed to look almost otherworldly, I kind of think that works to its advantage, but I just don't find it to be threatening. So yeah, Ghost Dance is just kind of okay. It's not terrible. It's just so middle of the road. Trev, you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, cool. Go on.
Number 8, right?
Yes. Now, from here on out, for me at least, all the rest of these 8 episodes I think are good. I don't think they're bad. I don't think they're terrible. I think these are all good. But I will be starting off with my least favorite of these 8 episodes. Again, it's not bad. It's good. It's just, well, you can kind of guess what it is. But yeah, all 8 of these episodes are the best of the series, in my opinion. So, all right, you're number 8.
My number 8 is Graboid Rights, which I believe should be considered the series finale. This brings everything to a head in terms of the themes for the show. And basically the main themes that are covered more than once is the question of, should the people of perfection live in the valley while there's an endangered species there? Is there any economic benefits to them being there? This also brings to a head whether or not Bert's intentions are noble or selfish. Does he want to use El Blanco as a way to remain in isolation, or does he actually have a kind of camaraderie with them? I think by this episode, he definitely, his intentions are not as selfish as they started out, and I think that he's actually doing it for El Blanco. But yeah, and also Nancy is probably the other character most focused on in terms of her moral dilemma. We get to see Mindy again. She's played by a different actress who does an okay job.
Looks like Diet Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, a little bit. Frankly, Ariana Richards, who played her in Tremors and Tremors 3, she wasn't anything to write home about either.
That was the same actress?
Yeah, from Jurassic Park. Yeah, that's her. I blew your mind again. Yeah. Yeah. There you go. Mind blown. I've done that more than once. Kind of crazy.
No, you just blew my mind twice in a row. Because wait, hang on. Is it the same actress who plays her in part 3 as well?
Yeah. Because remember, part 3, they pretty much got everybody who survived, who survived came back, who still lived in perfection.
And I also just realized that's the same actress from Jurassic Park. And it's funny, I was going to talk about Jurassic Park regarding this episode. I'll get to that when I talk about this one, where it's on my list. But
Yeah, I got you.
fucking
So
hell,
my final-
that's Lex from Jurassic Park.
and the Lost World too. She appeared briefly at the start of that.
Yeah, for like a minute and a half.
Minute and a half, yeah, but still. So yeah, for me personally, I feel like this is where you should end whenever you're watching the show. It ties everything up pretty neatly. If we're not going to keep on going, so yeah, it's my number 8.
Oh, damn! Really?
He may not cover everybody.
So my number 8 is Feeding Frenzy. Now, as Trev said, it's not a bad episode. It's a good episode. It's very fun. It's very enjoyable. Early 2000s and early 2000s Sci-Fi Channel as fuck. You can say that about the entirety of the show. But I think that's kind of what gives it its charm. Like, it just takes you back to a time when sci-fi was not putting out intentionally bad or asylum movies. They were putting out admittedly subpar material, but they're a little bit like Trauma. They just gave it their all. They had limited resources, but they still tried as hard as they could. So
I like how it opens. I like how it opens with the song that Tyler's singing along to. It kind of makes him instantly likable, at least for me.
And it's so early 2000s. My God, this stinks of being 2003.
Yes.
So it's just its only sole problem is that it's just the blueprint of the rest of the series. It's the base level. It's a good, well-made, well-structured base level, but it's still the base level. So the show can go nowhere else but up, which is good. But then it goes down a couple times, but whatever. So yeah, it's not a bad episode. It's very enjoyable. It's fun. It's entertaining. It's a great setup, but it's just a setup. So now we're getting to the new one. Your number 7.
Yeah, my number 7 is Blast from the Past. Believe it or not. Now, this is a really good episode, but again, there's a few others that were bumped up for me. Blast from the Past, actually kind of like Feeding Frenzy, these are the 2 episodes that feel the most like a direct continuation of Tremors 3.
Yes.
And I wrote out these little notes concerning Blast from the Past because it's actually, whenever I was rearranging the episodes for the order that they flow the best, this was either going to be the second or third one. And it was actually the 4th to air, I do believe, and the 3rd produced. But so here's what I wrote. Blast from the Past works as a direct follow-up to the pilot, Feeding Frenzy, save for one detail. Bert says to Tyler that ass blasters are twice as dangerous as Shriekers, implying that he's hunted Shriekers with Tyler before. Now, on the flip side, there's a possible continuity error with this assessment, and it's that Tyler doesn't know that he only needs to wear the heat-masking blankets outside. And that's a pretty funny moment, actually. But we knew that. Although he is...
I never really got the sense that was a continuity error. I just kind of feel like that was a joke.
Yeah, but see, and that's the thing, is that it probably works mainly as a joke, but still the point that I'm trying to make here is somehow, in one way or another, Shriekers were encountered before. And, elaborating on the blanket thing, he's seen wearing one briefly in Night of the Shriekers while he's with the others waiting for Bert to arrive at the bunker, which is outside. I'm going to get into that a little bit more later. But, so yeah, I feel like this should be the 3rd viewed whenever you're watching the series.
Ironically, it's a direct continuation of the 3rd film.
Yes, indeed. And there's also nice little fun things in here. There's a reference to Rodan in here. If you're a kaiju fan, you immediately love that. There's a good character moment between Nancy and Bert, which is kind of sweet. Again, it shows that Bert, he's a grumpy guy, but he still has the best intentions for everybody in the town, and he can provide words of wisdom, even if most of the time you're wanting him to shut up because he's going on about some conspiracy. So yeah, it's my number 7, and it could actually probably be bumped up higher, but it's still a really good episode.
I love, just real quick, this one's really high on my list, but I just want to say one of my favorite Bert quotes from the show is how he identifies the ass blaster. I know this smell. Like rotten eggs marinated in bad beer. Man, I can only imagine what that's got to smell like. Because I've smelled bad beer. And of course, I've smelled rotten eggs. I can only imagine what the hell that smells like combined.
Landed in the passenger seat, decimated this poor bastard, and took off again.
So what the hell is this? Launch residue.
Launch residue.
Alrighty, so my number 7 is A Little Paranoia Among Friends. This one is a good episode. But it's kind of hard for me to watch because it's so distressing listening to Bert clash with these people, because you think Bert's a big conspiracy theorist. So how the hell is he gonna react when he is around other conspiracy theorists? You'd think that'd be a match made in heaven. No, it's a fucking match made in hell. And that's why it's so difficult for me to watch this, because all the conspiracy theorists in this town, they're idiots. They're straight up morons. And they're so hard to watch. But it's a good episode, so you kind of tough yourself through it and you watch these dumbasses. It's so well done. And that's how you know that it's so well done, is if you feel Bert's frustration with these people. Graboid Rights has this as well, and this is higher on my list as well. It kind of has a similar thing, but you really share Bert's frustration when you see him interact with all these dumb morons.
They're religious zealots.
Oh. No, they're religious zealots. They're religious zealots, Trump supporters, anti-mask people, Karens, and Star Wars fans all rolled into one. They are unreasonable people. And watching Bert try to reason with unreasonable people is incredibly distressing and incredibly frustrating. It's a sign that it was done well. It was done very well. And I give them all the credit in the world for that. But damn, is it really hard to watch this episode sometimes. Because if you get easily triggered by just annoying, unreasonable people, this episode's very hard to watch. And I work at Walmart, so I deal with a lot of really unreasonable, weird, dumb people.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Shots fired from Nick Jackson, 2021. All right, so my number 6.
And by the way, we've all encountered weird Walmart customers. Like, you ever see a People of Walmart meme? Oh. They're so funny because they're true.
Yes. So, my number 6?
Yes.
Number 6. So this one is higher up than it was for Nick, but Ghost Dance is my number 6. And I think it's mainly due to nostalgia, because whenever I first watched this, whenever it first aired back in 2003 on Sci-Fi, this was the first taste of something different from the usual Tremors monsters. So it kind of fascinated me.
Oh, and this was one more thing I will say that I don't like about Ghost Dance is that government agent. Ugh, you just want to put a bullet in his ass.
He's a dick, yeah. But, the bacteria cloud probably is the least threatening of the mixed master monsters, but we do get to see it more than the shrimp, unfortunately.
True. So, yeah, they kind of balance these. The shrimp and the bacteria are the two least threatening monsters. The shrimp in concept is scary. Well, is more threatening, but in terms of mass destruction rampage, the bacteria is worse. So they kind of have elements that balance each other out. The shrimp is a more intimidating presence, but the bacteria like would fuck up and destroy an entire town within just a few minutes.
Indeed. So yeah, I think Christopher Lloyd is a wonderful addition to Tremors. I think he has 2 better episodes.
Oh yeah,
but he's still pretty good in this one. It was the first time we saw him, even though it was chronologically the second time. And there's also, even though Tremors 4 was lower on my ranking when we did the movies, I like to think whenever they're running around and investigating the mines, that might have been kind of connected to the old silver mine from Tremors 4. It's one of those nice little in-universe things. Maybe not necessarily, but it's something to think about. So, yeah, I think mainly due to nostalgia, because I remember it fascinated me. Ghost Dance is number 6 for me, and also the 6th episode. So.
Oh, speaking of nostalgia, I do believe the very first episode that I saw from Tremors the series was A Little Paranoia Among Friends, because I remember seeing the bloody, dismembered lower half of that one police officer that got chomped by the graboid, and I was wondering, what the hell's this? And a friend of mine who I was hanging out with at the time, he said, Tremors 4. There's a 4th Tremors?
He tricked you.
Asshole. I haven't seen that kid in like 15 years.
Probably good riddance. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, actually, no, he was a troublemaker.
We'll probably get into this because these episodes are higher up in our ranking. Actually, no, I'll just save it when we get there, but I want to point something out to you. So, yeah, you're number 6.
My number 6 is Project 412. The only thing I... What?
Oh, nothing. It's just higher on mine.
The only thing that's a little irritating about this one is sometimes Christopher Lloyd's performance is a little annoying. Like, he's acting... This is definitely the one, like, in his other 2 episodes, he's very eccentric. Here, he's just crazy. And he's the annoying kind of crazy. And I know that he's just kind of out of his mind with grief, but how he just, like, stands there and lets 412 just almost run him through, it's really annoying and really distressing to watch. But other than that, it's a great episode. The 412 himself is mean and nasty as fuck. And they also reuse a lot of Velociraptor sound effects for 412 as well, because Universal.
It's really sad how those became stock sounds. And they were such original sounds in the first Jurassic Park.
Yep. And ironically, this was 10 years after the original Jurassic Park, too.
It was indeed.
Yeah, 412 is a nasty little bastard. And I also thought it was really funny that finally, for the first time in his life, El Blanco bit down on something that was too hard to chew.
That was such a cool moment. It was the oh shit moment.
Yep, the oh shit moment. Like, oh my God, El Blanco finally ate something that he really didn't like. Not counting any inorganic material that he swallowed and spit out. Like, he finally bit down on something that he was able to chew and eat, but it was so nasty that he spit it out. And also, this is the first episode that introduces Mixmaster, which in my opinion is a really, really, really interesting and fascinating and borderline almost believable real piece of science that could become a thing in the next couple decades. And for those of you who don't remember, Mixmaster is a bioengineered compound that is able to mix different strands of animal DNA and create hybrid animals, like a scorpion with bat wings, or a Gila monster with scorpion pincers, or shit like that. Yeah, all these different hybrid monsters that could be born and turn Perfection Valley even more so into a Garden of Eden of monsters. It's a fascinating addition to the Tremors mythology. Just kind of a shame that aside from this and Flora and Fauna, nothing super interesting is done with it. Well,
I can agree with that.
Ghost Dance is an interesting concept as well, but not the greatest executed. But yeah, Project 412 is a great episode. It's also gory as fuck. You don't watch, but you see the aftermath of 412's attack on that horse, and you're just like, damn, this dude would just fuck you the fuck up.
So I think I'll just go ahead and get into it. You surmised that which one did you say of the movies was the goriest in the franchise? Do you remember?
Probably 5.
Yeah. I would say if we're counting this as an entry in the overall franchise, this by far is probably the goriest.
Okay, yeah. Discounting, no, I agree. Discounting the show, I think the goriest of the movies is part 5, with part 4 as a close second. But if we're counting the show, this is easily the goriest of the whole series. Because in multiple episodes, you see people and animals just get torn to pieces.
Yeah, and particularly the Shrieker episodes are pretty gruesome as well.
Mm-hmm. Especially Shriek and Destroy.
Yes.
So yeah, Project 412, great episode. It's a really, really great episode. Yeah. Moving on. You're number 6, I believe. Or no, number 5.
Number 5. My number 5 is Flora or Fauna. Arguably, it could be either the best Mixmaster episode or the second best for me. I think this is probably the best appearance for Larry. It's his first appearance. He's actually useful and kind of he's a little annoying, but he's somewhat charming as well.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you're a nerd or a geek, because you kind of identify with them. Another great appearance by Christopher Lloyd, probably his most
his best.
His most mellow.
His best.
Yeah, his best. Probably his most mellow and most in control. He's like the wise man that they're trying to consult in this one.
Especially when he comes in and talks down Casey from not feeling so bad about the loss of her colleagues, saying, great advancements in science, unfortunately, often do come with the loss of important lives, or something along those lines. It's true. It's very much so a true quote. And yeah, he's also at his most helpful in this episode. Kind of wish he became a series regular.
Yeah, but we did get a fair share of him as well. And, Nick mentioned Dr. Casey Matthews. Probably my favorite scientist character in the series. For one thing, she's attractive, but she's also just a good character. She knows what she's talking about, and she's proactive.
And helpful.
Yes, and, starting here, and then if you go into Water Hazard and then Graboid Rights, she's kind of there, in my view of it, she's kind of there for the rest of the series.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and also we brought up the gore. There is some pretty gruesome moments.
Oh, yeah, I'll talk about that later, but damn.
So, I'm going to let Nick go into it when he gets there, but this Flora Fauna is my number 5.
My number 5 is Graboid Rights. Similar to a little paranoia among friends, not only do you share with Bert's frustration, you share the entire town's frustration. Now, I admire environmental activists, like people who want to protect pieces of the world from industrialism. Now, I do believe that there are parts of the world that should just be left the fuck alone. I am one of those people that kind of believes in population control, because we're nearing 9 billion people, I believe, on planet Earth. Too many. Like 2 or 3 billion too many. And I do support, keeping garbage and trash out of the oceans. I had to watch that fucking video of people extracting that goddamn plastic straw from that sea turtle's nose. That was terrible. It's just don't give us paper straws, Subway. Those things fucking suck. So I do support a lot of environmental activism. These kind of people, though, they take it to the extreme and in the annoying way. They make these people feel like utter dog shit for living where they want to live. And yes, the question of should these people live here or should they not is brought up. This reminds me a little bit of the whole scientific dilemma, I'll say for lack of a better term, in Jurassic Park. Just because you can resurrect dinosaurs, should you? I don't know. I don't have an answer for you. Just because you can live in an environment that's inhabited by an endangered, dangerous animal, should you? I don't know. I don't have an answer for you. It does make you think. And that's what good sci-fi does if it makes you think. This is why one of the many reasons why I think Jurassic Park is such a brilliant movie. That's why I think Tremors is such an underrated, brilliant franchise. And yeah, you just really share the entire town's frustration. And it's not quite as distressing as a little paranoia among friends, but it is very similar. Or it's very close. Overall, this is just a fantastic episode. It's very, very entertaining. And yeah, it could work as a penultimate near the end of the series. Or no, you said a series finale. Well, I think it would need just a little bit more of a punch to become a series finale. And also the practical effects for the sick and dying El Blanco are spectacular. Overall, huh?
K&B Effects, probably most famously known for The Walking Dead, but they've done a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah. Fantastic episode. It's very enjoyable. It's very well thought out, and it shows some really good development for Bert. Yeah, Casey has some good screen time. Like, she's the one who finally does. I like that this episode also exposes the worst of extreme environmental activism. Like, it shows people that are willing to sabotage shit just to make themselves look better. Like, people like that are kind of special pieces of dog shit. Yeah, great episode. I absolutely love this one. Again, it's very distressing to watch, but it's very enjoyable. Oh, and watching that total slime ball Chad Benwick or Westwick, or whatever the hell his name was, get arrested and have all of his bullshit and hypocrisy exposed and shoved in his face is very satisfying to watch.
As it should be.
Number 4.
My number 4 is Shriek and Destroy. Now, this was the second produced, but I made this little note. In Shriek and Destroy, it's mentioned that Bert's survival school has already started. So while the episode was the second produced and last to air, as it turned out, it clearly happens after Blast from the Past, because that's whenever Bert had his first class. So that's my little continuity note. Twitchell also reminds Tyler of how well he handled Bert's relations with the locals on a previous mission, implying that a little paranoia among friends has already occurred. So, again, making notes of how I think you should watch this, Shriek and Destroy is my 4th. Or actually, sorry, my 5th. That's how I think you should watch it. I feel like it's a good... if you want a good example of how I think the next Tremors movie should try and be, you have a little bit of a little paranoia among friends mixed with Shriek and Destroy. And I think that would be some fine elements for a new movie. But anyway, Shriek and Destroy, it's a really good Shrieker episode. I like how it starts. Very creepy and suspenseful. It's a nice traveling abroad episode because they're in Arizona for this. And yeah, I'm sure Nick's going to say a whole lot more about it, but for me, it's number 4.
Yes, indeed, you do. So my number 4 is Blast from the Past. Just a very classic, very enjoyable, very entertaining episode. I have nothing wrong with it. There's literally nothing about it that I don't like. It's a nice little callback to Tremors 3. Like I said, because it's a direct continuation of Tremors 3, it makes me nostalgic to watch Tremors 3. I like its tone. And I like that you have these new outsiders that are brought to the valley. And at first, they're kind of seen as being a little bit unlikable, but then they quickly pull their heads out of their ass and they're willing to work with them. They're not antagonists. At first, they are slightly, but then they quickly just decide, you know what? These guys are actually kind of cool. They're not annoying. So let's just work with them to help them, let them help us solve our problem. And I also like that they're not so pig-headed and stuck in their ways. Like I'll just say the black guy, for lack of a better term. He is the one who has the backup rifle shoot down the gun plan. He's just there in case we need it. So I really like that. They're not so unwilling to pull their heads out of their ass and say, no, we're going to do it like this and not kill Messerschmitt, which is a terrible name, by the way. Yeah. But he's not so pig-headed. He's open to ideas, and he realizes, well, we may just have to put him down if it comes down to it. It's just a fun episode. And also, it once again, this franchise has a really good track record of using doing what you can with what you have to capture or kill its monsters, like having creative ways to dispose of them. Like the homemade flamethrower in Project 412, the way that you kill the monster in Flora and Fauna with just that simple bleach and ammonia mix or whatever it was. It's just really entertaining stuff. And overall, this is just a fun classic episode. It's and I like that, similar to the first three movies, the first three episodes of the show, you have Graboids for the first movie and episode, Shriekers for the first movie and episode, and Ass Blasters for the third movie and episode. It's a nice little coincidental progression. But yeah, I love this one. It's very enjoyable and it's very entertaining. Oh, and there's a little bit of humorous, like Bert acknowledges how ridiculous the name Ass Blaster is, kind of. And they mix volatile chemicals that virtually explode, expelled through an orifice in their posterior. So the guys take off by lighting a big one.
It's not my first choice, let me tell you. That's what he said.
So these guys take off by lighting a big one, so to speak. That shot was that flame was 10 feet long, man, right out of his ass. Yeah, great episode. Oh, and I do like their reference to Rodan.
Yes.
Number 3.
Ass blasters, right? Ass blasters, right? That means they really kick your ass, right? Not exactly. So, no, my number 3, and Nick's probably going to be a little surprised by this, is A Little Paranoia Among Friends. Now, it kind of has a little bit of the same problem that Water Hazard does, in that it really doesn't show us the monster, but we know what the monster is in this case because it's just a graboid. In this case, in New Mexico instead of Mexico or Nevada like we're used to. Mainly the reason this is so far up for me is because I just really love the dynamic between Bert and Tyler. I could probably they really deserved a movie, I think.
Yeah.
They were enjoyable. They were enjoyable to watch on their little adventure. They work off each other so well because Bert's all business, but he doesn't know sometimes whenever he needs to rein it in, and that's why Tyler's there to kind of help him balance it out. And Nick, you raised some pretty good points about the locals, but I find them annoying. But I mean, there's just people like that in real life, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
But yeah, it's like I think I kind of said this earlier. I think A Little Paranoia Among Friends and Shriek and Destroy, there's something about them that kind of reminds me of the best elements of Tremors 2, although maybe a little bit more action-packed because there's a lot more going on in Shriek and Destroy.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, purely for the characters, really, that's why A Little Paranoia Among Friends is up there for me as my number 3.
True. I didn't even think about the aspect of they don't show us the monster very much. But yeah, you're right. But like you said, we know what it is, so we're not like, hey, we want to see this new monster. It's just a graboid. Oh, we know what a graboid looks like.
Exactly.
So my number 3 is Flora and Fauna. Classic fucking episode. I actually think, well, no, I have bias towards these two, but I'm kind of giving it away here. Of the non-Shrieker episodes, this one is my favorite. Very threatening and ingenious monster, even though it kind of comes off as being a little bit of a ripoff of the Day of the Triffids.
Yes.
I still think that this monster is extremely unique and very much so a threatening presence. Because we see how quickly these dudes dissolve after being spit on by acid. They literally turn to skeletons within less than a minute. And it's gruesome and gory and nasty as fuck. And you just have all this great, no pun intended, chemistry between all these characters. You have the new brand of science that's here to do its own thing, but they're not antagonistic scientists. They want to be helpful and they want to work with the people here. You have a great villain in the monster, and you have Christopher Lloyd, and easily his best performance here. He's just the old wise mentor that's here to give his helping hand. And because he's experienced with Mixmaster, he obviously has a lot of knowledge in a lot of aspects that they could use to combat this threat. And everyone just comes together to solve a huge problem. And yes, Larry is cringy and he's annoying and he's stupid and he's very early 2000s. But in the end, he does redeem himself and he actually really does want to try to help solve the problem, which is nice. Overall, this is just what?
It's his best appearance in the show.
Yes, very much so. Overall, I love this episode. It's so entertaining and it's so enjoyable. And this is when Mixmaster, in my opinion, reaches its peak of being both an interesting concept and also its most threatening level of death. Next.
Well said, well said. My number 2 is Night of the Shriekers. So I'm sure Nick's going to say a whole lot about this one. So I'll just say that this is a proper Shrieker invasion of perfection. And these are some little observations I made, or notes. This was the 3rd to air, 7th produced, but it should probably be viewed 2nd in the series because when you're watching it, there's nothing else really going on that refers to, let's say, like Mixmaster. And like I was saying, in Shriek and Destroy, or not Shriek and Destroy, in Blast from the Past, it's implied that Tyler has encountered Shriekers with Bert before. And like I was saying, Blast from the Past is the first class for the survival school. And then in Shriek and Destroy, they're talking about it like it's already been going on. So again, this is how I rearranged the episodes. So for me, Night of the Shriekers should be the first appearance of the Shriekers on the show. And here's some other little things I noticed. The trained Shriekers predate the trained raptors in Jurassic World. Funny, since Tyler refers to the Shriekers as Jurassic Park wannabe bastards. So I thought that was pretty, yeah. Twitchell, who, by the way, the actor who played Twitchell, Dean Norris, he's probably most well known for being on Breaking Bad. But whenever I think of him, I think of Twitchell.
Same.
He also, this was a fun thing I didn't realize till later, he also appears briefly as the SWAT captain in Terminator 2. right before Miles Dyson blows himself up.
Oh, that was him. He kind of has
a
very distinctive bald head.
Yeah, and also his voice. He has that, it's kind of a southern twang. Maybe not Texan, but, something like that.
And it also is very surprisingly high-pitched.
Yes. So I bring Twitchell up because he says that Bert's bunker reminds him of his spending time in Tijuana, in a Tijuana holding cell during spring break 77. And I put this, yes, Bert and Twitchell were both having a good time in the 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one last note, because again, I think you're going to really go into it, Nick. The graboid from which the trained Shriekers respond was found in the Sahara, which, predates the whole African thing. So unfortunately, it further proves that the designs in the new films are just an overall redesign, because this is a classic graboid or classic Shriekers that came from the African continent. So there you go. This is a good episode, obviously, because it's my number 2. Very enjoyable. Night of the Living Dead, but with Shriekers and maybe a little bit better.
Yeah. So my number 2 is Shriek and Destroy. I have a shit ton of nostalgia for this one. This is actually debatably the one that I have the most nostalgia for, because not only did I rewatch this episode and just enjoy the hell out of it, rewatching this with my friend Grayson, but I would watch like a 10-minute compilation of scenes from this episode on YouTube constantly. And I thought this was the real Tremors 2. So when I saw the actual Tremors 2, I was kind of confused. But, at that point, I was able to put 2 and 2 together and not have a repeat of Tremors 4. But fucking classic ass episode. It's this is debatably the goriest of the whole of the, not just, I think this episode is the goriest bit of Tremors in the whole franchise, because 3 or 4 bodies get stripped down to the bone and there's blood and guts strewn all over the place. These Shriekers are just nasty little bastards. And also the firing volley at the very end of the episode with all the baseball dudes and the muskets. Well, first off, the reveal of the muskets is kind of funny. You see everyone being all excited to see all these guns, and then you see Bert just like, all wrong. Oh, and Bert, of course, has a great classic final kill of taking out that Shrieker with a fucking blunderbuss. For those of you who don't know, a blunderbuss is pretty much just a goddamn literal hand cannon. You can place your pocket watch in it and fire it out like that. Put a whole bunch of nails in that thing, a whole bunch of tacks, metal balls, or a giant slug. That thing is literally just like a mini hand cannon. Yeah, the firing volley with the muskets is very well done. It's very entertaining. Overall, this is just a great classic episode. I kind of showing my bias towards the Shriekers. I don't really mean to, but I really do enjoy me some Shrieker action, and this is pretty fucking damn enjoyable. There's one more though, but you can probably guess what it is, but bear with me. So I'm curious, your number 1.
Oh, real quick though, I want to say something I think you'll think is neat. So I used to record these on tape off of the Sci-Fi Channel, and right around the time this aired, I think it was August 2003, and that's when Freddy vs. Jason was coming out. So whenever I recorded this episode, there was a TV spot for Freddy vs. Jason during the commercial breaks, and I used to rewind that all the time and rewatch it over and over again, because that's what really got my interest into Freddy vs. Jason, was seeing that TV spot. And also, I just have to say, don't fire until you see the whites of their heat-seeking
organs.
All right, so my number 1 is Project 412, believe it or not. And now Nick made some fair criticisms, but then again, Christopher Lloyd as Cletus Hoffenberger, what a name, right?
Yeah, I know, right?
He's supposed to be a crazy desert rat. And the funny thing is that the people of Perfection are so used to their special kind of monster that they don't even consider that there might be something else running around out there.
Hang on,
So
your volume just went down a little bit.
Can you hear me now?
Okay, yeah, you're fine.
Yeah, so it's so funny that they don't consider that there might be something else running around out there besides the monster that they're used to. So the main reason this is my number one is because it's just a fascinating concept that it introduces with Mixmaster.
Yes.
I think the old mythology about there being this government lab in this desert valley that's trying to cook up these Vietnam war weapons, potentially, it is just really fascinating. And the fact that, I think I mentioned this in the ranking video for the movies, I like the fact that it adds a different layer to your experience when you're watching Tremors, because you're thinking, oh, Cletus is out there watching what's going on. And it's just a fun thing to think about. He also has a really good dynamic with Bert. Conversations with them great in this one, because if you think about it, they really don't ever speak much after this episode. I mean, there's an interaction here and there, but this is definitely the one where they're kind of sizing each other up. And it's also just the whole Mixmaster and lab concept. It's fun to see Bert kind of start to be even more paranoid, because he was thinking that this valley I'm living in, it's me being away from it all. But the government's still somewhere nearby, and I can't get away from them. There's that kind of interesting aspect to it. So yeah, 412, he's probably the best Mixmaster creature next to the plants. And yeah, it's just a really fun episode. And in terms of what makes this show unique from other Tremor stuff, I think this is the best example of that.
Yeah. I do have the question. So this whole Mixmaster make Vietnam war weapons idea, am I the only one who kind of feels like that was kind of a half-baked scheme?
Like the concept in general?
No, like in the context of the show, like using these hybrid monsters as weapons in Vietnam. Am I the only one who feels like this wasn't really thought all the way through?
I think they were trying to make sure it was old enough to where they had to find a reason why Cletus was doing what he was doing and why what the lab's purpose was, right? And they also had to kind of provide context to why he would be in the valley during the events of the original movie. So they thought, okay, so what could he be doing? Let's see, about 20 years or so before the first movie happens. So Vietnam's going on. What would a scientist be commissioned to do in a sci-fi context, right? That's not too out there.
Yeah, I know, but
that's how
this whole like covering, why didn't they just completely incinerate the lab? Why did they just pack up and leave? Eventually people are going to find this.
And they should have found it.
Huh?
That's something I wish, and they should have found it. It's something I wish they had explored.
Yeah, again, like maybe we should write a commission to Universal to finish this fucking show. Probably wouldn't never happen because all the actors have moved on and done other stuff. But
they seem to want to forget it, unfortunately.
It's a shame. It just kind of reminds me of like this whole this government lab feeling like a half-baked scheme. It reminds me of the original Alien, because when they find out that the xenomorph exists, then all of a sudden there's all these plans to capture the alien and bring it for their bioweapons division. It just kind of feels like a half-cooked scheme. Not necessarily a flaw with Project 412. This is just something that always stuck out to me. It always felt like such a half-baked scheme. But whatever.
That's a fair criticism. That's a fair criticism. It's just that I overlook it because overall the idea just is...
The idea is fascinating. Yes, the idea is fascinating. But I feel like that's a question that they could have asked in the context of the show. Like Bert could have asked, well, if this was such a big guaranteed winner, then why the hell, when Vietnam ended, did they just leave it here to rot? That could have been a great question that could have been answered if the show got finished. But no.
Yeah.
So my number one is Night of the Shriekers. Shriek and Destroy is a much more classic episode, but similar to Tremors 2, this is the closest that the show comes to being scary. Imagine being trapped inside a bunker with a whole bunch of monsters that know that you're there and they want to get in there and they want to eat you. How the hell would you react and how the hell would you fight back? Yeah, it's like Night of the Living Dead, but with Shriekers, a little bit better, more well made, very entertaining. And this was the only, because I said this before, my wife is not a big fan of Tremors, unfortunately. I showed her Tremors 4. Later, after the fact, she told me she was bored out of her mind. I think part of it is because she doesn't like Westerns very much, which that's kind of understandable. Westerns kind of are a acquired taste. Though I showed it to her just because I wanted to show her chronologically the first installment of the whole series, but whatever. But when I was rewatching the show for this ranking video, I had this on and she was over here sitting next to me watching it with me, and she actually was able to get engaged with the show. And she said a couple times, that scientist bitch is a fucking piece of shit. Yeah, she is. She's fucking stupid. To quote Jackie Boy from his Jaws 3D review, why do people keep thinking capturing giant monsters will always make them money and bring some good about in the world? It never does. It never fucking does. That's like trying to control cancer and make it a force for good. That's not going to work. Trying to control Shriekers and turn them into a force for good, it's not gonna work. And thankfully, it gleefully blows up in her face when she gets chomped.
Hey, as Bert said it himself, know nothing, know it all.
Yep, and the only thing that ever stopped a Shrieker was a bullet.
Bullets.
Yeah, and once again, you kind of share Bert's frustration in trying to deal with unreasonable people, because you know Bert's right. When have I ever been wrong about Shriekers? Never. Never. But you have these dumb motherfuckers that keep trying to say, no, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. They're wrong and Bert's right. Like the whole, like Nancy, I really have mixed feelings with Nancy. And sometimes she's a good character, like in Blast from the Past, where she has that whole existential crisis about, well, did I do good selling the ass blaster? Yeah. It's not your fault that some dumbasses decided to kidnap it and got eaten in the process. You captured a wild animal and you sold it, and you're paying for your daughter's tuition, trying to be a good mom. Nothing wrong with that. So in that aspect, she's cool. But then she turns around and she keeps talking shit to Bert, saying, you're such an over paranoid asshole. Let her do her work that could potentially get people killed. People get killed. Oh.
It's
I was wrong.
Stuff.
Huh?
It's the hippy dippy stuff with Nancy. I will say though that I believe her name is Marcia Strassman.
Yes.
She's dead now, by the way, unfortunately. But I do think she's the better of the two Nancy actresses.
Yes, she's dead? Really?
Yeah. She died of breast cancer, I think, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah, so it's been a while. It was quite sad. Oh, and I meant to make a post about this, but whenever the character Jasmine was mentioned in Tremors 5, I kind of pictured somebody like Nancy.
Yeah, me too. And the actress they got to play Jasmine in Tremors 7 was perfectly cast, in my opinion.
Yes.
Probably should have mentioned that in my review, but aside from her introduction, nothing much is really done with her in that film.
Honestly, had she still been alive, I actually would have brought back this actress because that would have been cool. Even though she played Nancy on the show, it'd be nice to have seen her again.
Yeah.
That would have been a long shot, still.
So yeah.
Oh, and I also want to mention.
Go ahead.
One last thing. This one and Water Hazard are really the two episodes where you kind of feel sympathy for Twitchell. You realize that he's not that bad of a guy, and he actually has a life going on outside of his government job.
And yeah, probably the funniest Twitchell moment in the whole series is when he gets splattered in fucking Shrieker guts. Oh, that shit's funny. He just turns around slowly. He's just totally slathered in Shrieker guts, and he just like, I'm out. Yeah, Night of the Shriekers is fucking awesome. And yeah, like what Trev says, excellent, perfect execution of a Shrieker invasion in Perfection Valley. Imagine if the Shriekers got their claws into Rosalita's cattle.
They would break out and take over Nevada.
Yep.
Which is something Jody said in Tremors 3, but we didn't get to see it.
Sadly. Yeah. Well, yeah, sadly, because that would have been a really cool movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, great episode. This is easily my favorite of the whole series. It's the one that I enjoy watching the most. Again, I have more nostalgia for Shriek and Destroy, but I just think this one is a little bit of a better executed Shrieker episode. And also, I don't know if I finished this thought. Once again, like with Tremors 2, this is the closest that the show comes to being scary.
It is pretty eerie.
Not nearly as much as Tremors 2, but it's in a similar vein. One could almost say it's kind of like a diet Tremors 2, but in this case, it's not really a bad thing.
It's the proper Tremors 4, in my book.
Yep. Oh, and, so easily one of the biggest flaws with this entire show is the bad CG work. But because most of this episode takes place at night, the fact that it's dark outside, it kind of does hide the CG models for the Shriekers. You can still tell that it's CG, but it's not nearly as noticeable as it is in Shriek and Destroy. But overall,
that's during the day.
Yeah, most of that's during the day. Overall, great fucking episode. My favorite of the whole series. And overall, it's just a fucking great, great show. So, let's go through our list one more time. Trev, you can go through yours. And you can also, one by one, go through the order of episodes that you think that you should view this show in to finish that thought up, because you keep mentioning that.
Yeah, no, it just really occurred to me the best experience for me to watch it. So you want me to start with the ranking?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay, number 13 and number 12 for both of us was The Key and Sounds of Silence.
Yep. Well, just go for your list. I'll go through mine.
Yeah, I got you. Okay, so from worst to best, The Key, Sounds of Silence, Hit and Run, Feeding Frenzy, Water Hazard, Graboid Rights, Blast from the Past, Ghost Dance, Flora or Fauna, Shriek and Destroy, A Little Paranoia Among Friends, Night of the Shriekers, and Project 412.
Mine is The Key, Sounds of Silence, Water Hazard, Hit and Run, Ghost Dance, Feeding Frenzy, A Little Paranoia Among Friends, Project 412, Graboid Rights, Blast from the Past, Flora and Fauna, Shriek and Destroy, and Night of the Shriekers. Now, what is in your opinion, your personal, or what is it like?
Ideal way to watch them?
Yes, thank you. Brain fart there.
All right, everybody, newcomers or longtime fans, consider this my machete order, like for the Star Wars movies. All right, so you start with Feeding Frenzy, obviously, is number 1. Number 2 is Night of the Shriekers. Number 3 is Blast from the Past. Number 4 is A Little Paranoia Among Friends. Number 5 is Shriek and Destroy. Number 6 is Project 412. Number 7 is Ghost Dance. Number 8 is Flora or Fauna. Number 9 is Water Hazard. And to finish it up, Graboid Rights is number 10.
Interesting way to look at it. So, in this special announcement that I'm going to make for the channel. So, once again, this might be kind of annoying to some people, or maybe it's not, and I'm just talking out of my ass. So, I've decided I'm not going to review the Karate Kid franchise. I will watch it, and I will do a ranking, I'll do a ranking video, but I'm not going to review each individual installment. I've actually decided, since Trev has gotten me into a Tremors mood, so looking back, my original Tremors reviews are good, but the way that I review movies now, I think, is a little bit different. Like, I'm a little bit I've gotten a lot better at going on tangents and coming up with stuff on the spot about and praising certain things. And also, I've gotten better at criticizing stuff. And also, Trev was really looking forward to this idea when I was doing Super Kaiju Binge, because I was considering including that as part of Super Kaiju Binge. But instead of reviewing the Karate Kid series, I've decided that I'm going to launch a re-review series of the Tremors franchise, except for Part 7. And it's maybe a really unconventional reviewing Part 7 and then doing a ranking of the films and show, then ranking the episodes of the show, and then re-reviewing the first 6 movies. Well, I haven't watched the first 6 movies in a long time, and I've only seen Part 6 itself only once. But you know what? I'm just in a Tremors mood right now, I guess, so I want to do what I want to do. And Trev was really looking forward to it. And I think Tremors is the biggest franchise that he and I can agree on, aside from the Godzilla franchise. But I have a lot of people that I share that with. But yeah, look forward next time when Trev and I will be reviewing the original Tremors film. Also, special for him since he just got the Arrow Blu-ray of the original Tremors movie.
And it's gorgeous. Hey, can I pimp something out?
Go right ahead.
All right, guys,
the look on your face. Hang on, the look on your face. And it's gorgeous.
It's gorgeous. All right, so I have something specific I want y'all to go look for if you like this episode. So on the Fictosphere, whenever you look me up, I wrote out a pitch with images and everything for a crossover between Tremors and Jurassic Park.
Which is an excellent 2 franchises that should definitely do a crossover. And it's not like there would be any conflict of interest with studios because they're both Universal franchises.
They're both Universal, and there's a perfect connective tissue that would not only legitimize the show again, but it's also something that plays into Jurassic Park very well, and it's Mixmaster. So I basically came up with what I considered a tying up loose ends for the show, but in the context of a crossover with Jurassic Park. So it's called Tremors Chaos Effect, and you can find it on thefictosphere.com.
I'm guessing they explained that Mixmaster is what they use to create the hybrid dinosaurs, yes?
Yes, because I also really like the Chaos Effect toy line for Jurassic Park.
Well. So yeah.
Hey, I'll check that out.
Look forward next week to me and Trev's review of the re-review of the original Tremors movie. Because you know what? I'm in a Tremors mood. So why not? So, thank you all for watching. Post your comments down below. Let me know what you think. Hit the like button and hit the subscribe button and share this video with your friends. Check out Trevor's channel, Trevor Thomson, I guess, on YouTube. And check out Trev's stuff on Fictosphere.com. Is that what it's called?
Yes, sir.
And go check out his stuff. That was it Tremors Chaos Theory? Is that what you called it?
Chaos Effect.
Or
like
Chaos Effect. Yeah, excuse me. Sounds like a really interesting concept. Go and check that out. And as always, go out and once again, if you're in a desert and you see a big hump moving towards you, don't run. You'll get eaten. And I will see you guys in the next video.